He woke up early every morning long before the sun rose. The streets were quiet, the air cold, but he didn't mind. His job as a janitor at the local school was not easy, but he never complained. It paid very little, just enough for him and his younger sister to get by. Their mother had passed away when he was small, and their father had left years ago. Life had taught him to be responsible from a young age, and he carried that responsibility with a quiet pride. Every morning, he walked through the small, empty streets to reach the school. He liked the early hours. There was something peaceful about the world before it woke up. He would pass by the bakery where the smell of fresh bread drifted out, making him think of better days. Sometimes he would wave at neighbors, exchange brief greetings, and continue on his path. People knew him, but they didn't know his story. He moved quietly through life, unnoticed by most, but he never felt invisible. He had a purpose. At school, he started his day by unlocking doors, sweeping floors, and making sure everything was in order before the students arrived. The janitor's duties were simple but necessary. He cleaned classrooms, refilled supplies, and sometimes helped teachers with small tasks. Though the work was tiring, he always had a smile ready. The students often ignored him, rushing past him in their excitement to get to class, but he didn't mind. He didn't work for recognition. He worked because it was the right thing to do. Among the students, there was a boy who always seemed anxious. He was small and quiet, often sitting in the back of the classroom fidgeting with his pen. The janitor noticed him every day, how he hesitated to raise his hand, how he struggled with his lessons. He didn't know the boy's family situation, but he saw the fear and uncertainty in his eyes. He felt a connection, a sense of responsibility that went beyond his duties. One morning, as the janitor was mopping the hallways, he noticed the boy pacing outside the classroom. The boy seemed restless, glancing at the clock every few minutes. He carried a heavy backpack and looked worried. The janitor paused, watching him for a moment. He could see that something was not right. Quietly, he approached the boy and asked, "Are you okay?" The boy jumped slightly, as if startled by attention. He looked at the janitor and nodded, but his eyes betrayed his anxiety. "I'm fine," he said softly. The janitor didn't push further. He just smiled and said, "If you need anything, I'm here." Days passed and the janitor continued his work, always keeping an eye on the boy when he could. He noticed how the boy struggled with his homework, how he seemed lonely during recess, and how he tried to help others but often went unnoticed. The janitor admired his determination. Despite his struggles, the boy never gave up. It reminded the janitor of himself when he was younger, trying to survive in a world that seemed indifferent. The janitor had his own dreams, simple ones. He dreamed of giving his sister a better life, of seeing her succeed in school, and of one day living in a house where they wouldn't have to worry about money. But he had learned to live in the present, to find happiness in small things. A clean classroom, a student smiling, a kind word exchanged. These were victories he celebrated quietly. On one particularly busy morning, the school was preparing for midterm exams. The hallways were filled with nervous students, teachers giving last-minute instructions, and the faint smell of disinfectant and chalk dust. The janitor worked quickly, sweeping the floors, checking the classrooms, and making sure everything was perfect. He knew exams were stressful, and he wanted the environment to be calm and orderly. As the students filed into their classrooms, the janitor noticed the anxious boy standing outside, clutching his exam papers tightly. His hands shook slightly, and he took deep breaths as if trying to calm himself. The janitor paused, considering whether to intervene. He remembered the boy's struggles and the effort he put into everything he did. Something inside him stirred, a desire to protect, to help, even if it was just a small gesture. The janitor approached and said quietly, "Remember to breathe. You've prepared for this. Just do your best." The boy looked up, surprised that someone had noticed his worry. A small smile appeared on his face, fleeting but genuine. "Thank you," he whispered. The janitor nodded and continued his work, but he kept glancing at the classroom door, hoping the boy would be okay. Later that morning, while cleaning near the exam hall, the janitor noticed a commotion. The boy had fainted at his desk, panic overtaking him during the exam. Teachers rushed over trying to help, but the janitor moved faster. He was already by the boy's side, checking his pulse, supporting him and calming him down. His hands were steady, his voice calm, guiding the boy through the panic. The teachers looked at him with surprise and relief. "Thank you," one whispered. You saved him. The janitor simply nodded. He didn't feel like a hero. He had just done what anyone should do. The boy slowly regained composure, sitting up and taking deep breaths. His eyes met the janitor's, filled with gratitude and something more, a realization that someone cared, even when it seemed the world didn't. After the incident, the janitor continued his work, but the boy lingered nearby. He wanted to speak, to express thanks, but words didn't come easily. Instead, he offered a shy nod, a small smile that said more than words could. The janitor returned the smile, knowing that sometimes the smallest gestures mattered the most. Days passed, and life at the school returned to its normal rhythm. Students studied, teachers taught, and the janitor cleaned. But something had changed. The boy walked a little taller, smiled a little brighter, and the janitor noticed the difference. It was subtle but undeniable. He had made an impact, not through grand gestures, but through quiet presence and simple kindness. Evenings were long and quiet for the janitor. After school, he would walk home with his sister, carrying groceries, helping with homework, and sharing stories of the day. He never spoke of what happened during the exam. He didn't need recognition. For him, the satisfaction of knowing he had helped someone was enough. He believed in doing good quietly without expecting anything in return. The janitor's life was humble, but it was filled with small victories and moments of meaning. He understood that true impact wasn't measured by wealth or status, but by the lives touched, the kindness shared, and the courage shown in small, unexpected moments. And although he didn't know it yet, the act of saving his classmate during that stressful exam would set in motion events that would change his life forever. For now, he continued his routine, quietly shaping the world around him, one simple, meaningful act at a time. After the incident in the exam hall, the janitor went about his work quietly. As always, he did not seek attention or praise. He returned to cleaning classrooms, sweeping hallways, and refilling supplies, but the events of that day lingered in his mind. He thought about the boy, the fear in his eyes, and how fragile life could be. It made him more aware, more attentive to the students around him. The boy, on the other hand, could not stop thinking about what had happened. He had never expected help to come from the janitor. Most students ignored him, and teachers often focused on other matters. But in that moment, when panic gripped him, it was the janitor who had steadied him, who had offered calm guidance and care. The boy felt a mix of relief and admiration, emotions he had rarely experienced. As the days went by, the boy started to see the janitor in a new light. He watched him move through the school, always ready to help anyone in need. The janitor never asked for recognition, never complained about the hard work, and always treated students with kindness. It inspired the boy. He began to notice the small details, how the janitor cleaned the floors with care, how he made sure the classrooms were ready for learning, how he spoke softly and respectfully to everyone. The boy realized that courage and goodness were not limited to the powerful or wealthy. They could be found in the quietest corners, in the humblest lives. One afternoon, the janitor noticed the boy lingering near the library. He was carrying a stack of books but seemed distracted. The janitor approached him gently. "Need some help?" he asked. The boy shook his head but appreciated the offer. I don't know if I can do all this before the deadline," the boy admitted. The janitor smiled, a kind smile that made the boy feel less anxious. "Take it one step at a time. You'll get there," he said. And with that simple encouragement, the boy felt a little lighter, a little more confident. Word of the janitor's heroism and consistent kindness began to spread among the students. Some whispered to their friends about what had happened in the exam hall. Others began to notice his small acts of care and attention throughout the school. The janitor, however, remained the same. He did not seek validation. He only wanted to make a difference where he could, in the simplest and most meaningful ways. The boy decided he wanted to repay the janitor in some way. Not with money, not with gifts, but with a gesture that could show his gratitude and respect. He started paying attention to the janitor's routine, the things he liked, the small comforts he enjoyed. He noticed the janitor carried the same worn-out bag every day, and he often skipped lunch to save money. The boy wanted to offer help, but he wasn't sure how. He knew the janitor would refuse any material gift, so he decided to help in ways that mattered most, by offering friendship, by acknowledging his efforts, and by showing that he cared. Meanwhile, life at school continued. Exams came and went. Lessons moved forward and students carried on with their lives. But for the janitor and the boy, a subtle bond was forming. It was built on mutual respect, quiet understanding, and a shared experience that neither would forget. The janitor began to notice small changes in the boy as well. He seemed more confident, more willing to participate, and less burdened by fear. It was a slow transformation, but it was visible. The janitor felt a quiet pride, knowing that a simple act of kindness had made a real difference. One day, the janitor was cleaning the main hallway when he overheard a conversation between two students. They were talking about how someone had witnessed his actions during the exam. They expressed surprise that someone in such a humble position could display such courage and care. The janitor smiled to himself but continued his work. Recognition did not matter to him. What mattered was the impact, the lives touched, and the moments of help that could change someone's day or even their future. The boy started to confide in the janitor, sharing his worries, his challenges, and even his dreams. The janitor listened, offering advice when needed and, more importantly, providing a listening ear. He taught the boy that strength is not always loud, and courage does not require grand gestures. Sometimes it is in standing by someone when they are vulnerable, offering calm and care, and showing that someone believes in them. Days turned into weeks, and the boy began to excel in school, not just academically but emotionally as well. He learned to face challenges with courage, inspired by the janitor's example. Teachers noticed the change, and classmates began to see him differently. He became a quiet leader, someone who could offer help and support to others just as the janitor had done for him. The janitor continued his routine, always humble, always attentive. But small moments of connection with students like the boy reminded him why he worked so hard. Every smile, every word of thanks, every moment of relief he could bring to someone's day was a reward far greater than money or recognition. He understood that real impact comes from consistency, compassion, and selflessness. One rainy afternoon, the boy approached the janitor with a notebook in hand. Inside were notes he had written, detailing lessons he had learned from the janitor's actions and reflections on how courage and kindness could change lives. The boy wanted the janitor to read it, to know that his efforts were not unnoticed, that they mattered deeply. The janitor accepted the notebook with a quiet smile, touched by the gesture. He never expected such acknowledgement, and yet it meant more to him than any reward could. As the storm passed and sunlight filtered through the windows, the janitor and the boy shared a moment of understanding. It was unspoken but powerful. A bond had formed not through wealth or status but through shared humanity, courage, and care. And although neither knew it yet, this moment of connection would set the stage for events that would soon bring unexpected recognition, surprises, and changes to the janitor's life. The janitor continued to work tirelessly, moving from classroom to hallway to office, ensuring the school remained a safe, clean, and supportive environment. The boy followed, learning, observing, and growing. Together they navigated the challenges of school life, the pressures of exams, and the quiet struggles that each student faced. The janitor's heroism was no longer a single moment, but a series of small, meaningful actions that shaped the boy's life and inspired those around him. Evenings brought the janitor home to his sister, who greeted him with warmth and curiosity. He shared stories in bits and pieces, careful not to boast or exaggerate. Life remained simple yet filled with purpose. The janitor's heart was content, knowing that even in his humble life, he could make a difference, one small act at a time. Through quiet observation, consistent support, and unwavering kindness, the janitor had begun to transform not only the boy's life, but the atmosphere of the entire school. His actions rippled outward, inspiring students to care for one another, to act with courage, and to recognize that true value lies in character, not wealth. And as the janitor went about his duties, he remained unaware that these very acts of compassion and bravery would soon bring attention from beyond the school walls, changing the course of his life in ways he could never have imagined. Weeks turned into months, and life at the school continued its rhythm. The janitor remained a quiet presence, unnoticed by many, but deeply respected by those who took the time to see him. He moved through the hallways, always attentive, always ready to help. The boy he had saved during the exam continued to grow more confident, his fear slowly replaced by determination. He carried himself differently, walked taller, and even offered help to other students who struggled. It was a change no one could ignore, though few understood the source. The janitor noticed subtle shifts in the school environment as well. Other students began to show small acts of kindness inspired by what they had seen. A culture of respect and care began to form, quietly transforming the way students interacted with one another. It was not dramatic or loud, but it was real, and it made the janitor feel that his work mattered in ways he could never fully measure. One afternoon, while the janitor was sweeping the floor near the library, he noticed a teacher speaking with the boy in hushed tones. Curious, he watched from a distance. The boy was smiling more than usual, and his body language seemed confident. The teacher nodded repeatedly, and the boy's expression brightened even further. It became clear to the janitor that the boy had made significant progress both academically and emotionally. The quiet encouragement he had offered in the past had taken root. Around the same time, the janitor began to notice unfamiliar faces in the school. Men and women in neat suits would sometimes appear near the entrances, glancing around, taking notes, and asking questions. At first, the janitor did not think much of it. Schools often had visitors, parents, or inspectors, but over time, he realized that these visitors came with purpose. They seemed to be observing not just the school but specific students and staff, their attention lingering on the boy he had saved. The janitor felt a mixture of curiosity and unease. He did not seek attention, and he preferred the quiet simplicity of his work. Yet something about the visitor's focus hinted that change might be approaching. The boy, meanwhile, had been confiding more in the janitor. He shared his fears, his dreams, and the challenges he faced at home. His family was wealthy, though he had never mentioned it before. There had been complications, disagreements, and distance, which left him feeling isolated despite their wealth. The janitor listened patiently, never judging, offering words of support and wisdom. He taught the boy that courage came from within, and that true strength was in helping others without expecting anything in return. The boy absorbed these lessons, and they shaped his decisions and actions. One afternoon, the boy approached the janitor with a hesitant expression. "I want to do something for you," he said quietly. The janitor smiled gently and shook his head. "You've already given me more than you know," he replied. "Just keep being the person you are." But the boy persisted. He wanted to show gratitude in a meaningful way, not with money or gifts, but with an acknowledgement of the janitor's quiet heroism and constant care. The janitor reluctantly agreed, realizing that the gesture came from sincerity rather than obligation. Days later, the janitor noticed a small envelope left on a bench near the courtyard. Inside was a handwritten note from the boy expressing thanks and admiration. The note spoke of courage, kindness, and the quiet ways the janitor had made a difference. It was a simple gesture, yet it touched the janitor deeply. He folded the note carefully and kept it with him, a reminder that even small acts could have a lasting impact. As the school year progressed, the atmosphere began to shift further. Students who had once ignored the janitor started acknowledging him, offering smiles, greetings, and small acts of respect. Teachers, too, began to notice the influence he had on the boy and others. His quiet presence was no longer invisible. It had become a subtle force that shaped the culture of the school. Yet the janitor remained humble, continuing his work without seeking recognition, content with the knowledge that his efforts mattered. One afternoon, the school's principal called the janitor into her office. She spoke warmly, expressing appreciation for his dedication and the impact he had on students. She mentioned the boy in particular, noting the remarkable transformation she had witnessed. The janitor listened quietly, feeling a mixture of pride and humility. He had never sought praise, but he understood that sometimes acknowledgement could inspire even more positive change. Meanwhile, the boy continued to excel. His confidence grew, and he began helping classmates who struggled, passing on the support he had received. Teachers noted his leadership, kindness, and maturity. The janitor watched from a distance, feeling a quiet satisfaction. He realized that his simple actions had set off a chain reaction of positive influence, far beyond what he could have imagined. One day, as the janitor was cleaning near the school entrance, he noticed a luxury car parked outside. At first, he thought it might belong to a visitor or a parent. But then 2 more cars arrived, equally luxurious. The sight was unusual and drew the attention of students and staff. People whispered, speculating about the sudden arrival of wealth and importance. The janitor remained calm, unsure what it meant but sensing that something significant was about to happen. The boy approached the janitor, a mixture of excitement and nervousness on his face. "They're here to see you," he said quietly. The janitor blinked in surprise. "Me?" he asked, incredulous. The boy nodded. "They know what you did. They want to meet the person who saved me." The janitor felt a mixture of disbelief and humility. He had never expected recognition, let alone from people of such influence and means. As the luxury cars pulled into the school driveway, students gathered around, watching with curiosity and awe. The janitor stood quietly, unsure how to react. The visitors stepped out, and it became clear that they were connected to the boy's family. Their presence was formal yet respectful, and their expressions conveyed gratitude, admiration, and genuine interest in the janitor's life. The principal introduced the janitor to the visitors, who shook his hand warmly. They spoke of courage, selflessness, and the importance of his actions during the exam incident. The janitor listened, humbled and slightly overwhelmed. He had never sought recognition, yet he felt a sense of pride, not in himself but in the values that had guided his actions. The boy stood nearby, watching the interaction with a mix of pride and relief, knowing that the janitor was finally receiving the acknowledgement he deserved. The visitors offered support, opportunities, and gestures of appreciation. They spoke of scholarships, assistance for his family, and ways to ensure that the janitor's future could be brighter. The janitor accepted with humility, recognizing that this was not about wealth or status, but about acknowledging character, courage, and kindness. He remained grounded, knowing that true value was in the actions one took, not the recognition one received. As the day progressed, students and staff continued to observe the events, inspired by the janitor's journey. The quiet man who had moved through the school unnoticed was now recognized as a hero, not just for one act, but for the consistent kindness, care, and courage he had shown. The boy's life, too, had been transformed, and together, they had created ripples of positive change throughout the school. By evening, the visitors departed, leaving the janitor and the boy alone in the courtyard. They exchanged a glance, an unspoken understanding passing between them. The janitor had been recognized not for fame or wealth, but for the impact he had made through humility, courage, and selflessness. And the boy had learned the true meaning of bravery, kindness, and gratitude. The janitor continued his work, now with a renewed sense of purpose. His life remained simple, but the events of the day had shown him that even the smallest acts of courage could lead to extraordinary outcomes. The school, the students, and the community had been touched by his quiet heroism, and the boy he had saved now carried forward the lessons of empathy, bravery, and respect. The janitor's story became a quiet legend in the school, a reminder that true heroism does not seek attention, but acts with compassion, humility, and unwavering care. And although he remained the same humble man he had always been, his life was beginning to change in ways that would ripple far beyond the walls of the school, touching lives he could never have imagined. After the visitors left, life at the school began to settle, but the janitor's world had quietly shifted. The respect from students and teachers was evident, yet he remained humble, continuing his duties without fuss or expectation. He knew the recognition he had received was not about himself, but about the values he had lived by: kindness, courage, and compassion. Yet deep inside, a small sense of hope and possibility had begun to take root. The boy he had saved during the exam continued to flourish. His confidence grew with every passing day. No longer hesitant or fearful, he began helping classmates, tutoring younger students, and standing up for those who struggled. The janitor watched him from a distance, silently proud of the progress he had made. It was a slow and steady transformation, one that spoke to the power of guidance and encouragement, even in the most unexpected forms. The school community began to change as well. Students who had once ignored the janitor now greeted him warmly. Teachers spoke highly of his dedication. Even other staff members began to notice the small ways he had influenced the school's atmosphere. The janitor had never sought this acknowledgement, yet it was becoming clear that his actions had sparked something larger than he could have imagined. It was a quiet revolution of care, respect, and integrity. One morning, the janitor arrived at school to find the boy waiting for him. His expression was a mixture of nervousness and excitement. "I have something to show you," the boy said. He led the janitor to a classroom where a small crowd had gathered. The students and teachers were there, but the janitor's attention was drawn to a few unfamiliar figures standing at the back. They were well-dressed, serious, and observing everything intently. The janitor felt a wave of curiosity and cautious anticipation. The boy stepped forward, speaking with confidence. He told the gathered audience about the incident during the exam, about how the janitor had saved him, and how his consistent kindness had made a difference in the lives of many. The janitor listened quietly, feeling a mix of humility and surprise. He had never expected such a public acknowledgement, yet he remained composed, letting the boy's words speak for themselves. The unfamiliar figures approached afterward, introducing themselves as part of the boy's family and close associates. They had been moved by the story and wanted to personally thank the janitor. They spoke of opportunities, support for his family, and ways to ensure that his efforts could continue to make a difference. The janitor listened, overwhelmed but grateful. He had never sought wealth or fame, but he recognized the importance of the support being offered not for himself, but for the future of his sister and the lives he could continue to touch. Over the next few days, the janitor's routine began to change in subtle ways. He still cleaned classrooms, mopped floors, and refilled supplies, but he also started attending meetings with educators and community members who wanted to involve him in programs to support students. His perspective on his own life shifted. The possibilities that had once seemed distant or impossible were now within reach, and he felt a quiet determination to use this new attention responsibly. The boy remained by his side, a steady presence and a reminder of why he had acted with courage and kindness in the first place. Together, they began to work on projects to help other students, providing mentorship, guidance, and support. The janitor discovered a new sense of purpose in this work. He realized that heroism was not a single act but a series of choices, small, consistent, and selfless, that could ripple outward to touch countless lives. Word of the janitor's story began to spread beyond the school. Local newspapers and community newsletters covered his bravery, highlighting the way he had helped the boy during the exam and how he had inspired positive change throughout the school. People were drawn to the humility and integrity that characterized his actions. He remained grounded, never seeking the spotlight, but he welcomed the attention as a way to promote values of kindness and courage. One evening, the janitor and his sister sat together in their small home, discussing the changes that had come into their lives. The sister expressed her pride and admiration, reminding him that he had always lived with integrity, and that recognition was simply a reflection of the impact he had on others. The janitor smiled quietly, feeling a sense of fulfillment he had never experienced before. Life had been difficult, but the struggles had shaped him, and now they were opening doors he had never imagined. As weeks passed, the janitor continued to balance his work at the school with new opportunities. He attended community events, participated in student mentorship programs, and even spoke to small groups about the importance of courage, kindness, and empathy. He became a quiet role model, not because he sought it, but because his actions naturally inspired others. Students looked up to him, teachers respected him, and the community admired the integrity he had demonstrated in every facet of his life. The boy, too, flourished in this environment. He excelled academically and socially, his confidence bolstered by the support and example of the janitor. He began to take on leadership roles in school activities, helping organize events and mentoring younger students. The janitor observed these developments with quiet satisfaction, knowing that the ripple effects of his actions were far greater than he had ever anticipated. One day, the school held a special assembly to honor those who had made significant contributions to the community. The janitor was invited as a guest of honor, not for his position but for the extraordinary impact he had made through humility, courage, and consistent kindness. As he stood on the stage, receiving applause from students, teachers, and community members, he felt a mix of emotions: gratitude, humility, and a renewed sense of purpose. He understood that recognition was not the goal, but it was a powerful reminder of how meaningful small, selfless actions could be. After the assembly, the janitor returned to his daily tasks, continuing to clean, organize, and support the school community. He remained the same humble man, grounded in his values and dedicated to making a difference wherever he could. Yet the experiences of the past months had changed him subtly. He was more confident in his ability to inspire change, more willing to embrace new opportunities, and more aware of the profound impact that simple acts of kindness could have. The boy, inspired by the janitor's recognition, continued to grow, becoming a role model for his peers. Together, they demonstrated that courage and kindness are not limited by social status, wealth, or position. They showed that even in the most humble circumstances, individuals can create extraordinary change through consistent, selfless actions. As the days turned into months, the janitor and the boy worked side by side, building a stronger, more supportive school community. Students learned the importance of empathy. Teachers appreciated the quiet influence of integrity, and the community saw the power of small acts that could ripple outward to create meaningful change. The janitor's life remained grounded in simplicity, but it was now enriched with purpose, connection, and the knowledge that his actions had the power to transform lives in ways he could never have imagined. And though he continued to work quietly, without seeking fame or fortune, the janitor had become a beacon of hope and inspiration. His story reminded everyone that heroism comes in many forms, and that the courage to act with kindness, even in the smallest ways, can leave an enduring mark on the world. Life had changed in ways the janitor had never imagined. He continued to perform his daily duties at the school, sweeping floors, cleaning classrooms, and maintaining order. But the world around him had shifted. Students now greeted him with respect and admiration. Teachers sought his advice on small matters and often consulted him on ways to improve student well-being. The janitor remained humble, never letting recognition alter his character or his commitment to serving others. The boy, whose life had been transformed by the janitor's courage, was now thriving. He was excelling academically and socially, helping classmates and acting as a mentor to younger students. The bond between the janitor and the boy had grown stronger over time. They worked together on various projects ranging from tutoring sessions to organizing school events that promoted kindness, empathy, and collaboration among students. The janitor saw in the boy the reflection of his own values, and it warmed him to witness such growth. One morning, a sense of anticipation filled the school. The janitor noticed luxury cars pulling up outside, and students began to whisper with excitement. The janitor was initially uncertain about what this meant. He continued his work, moving calmly through the hallways, but he could feel the tension in the air. The boy approached him quietly, saying, "They're here for you again." The janitor's eyes widened in surprise. He had never expected such attention and recognition to continue, yet he understood that it was not about him alone. It was about the values he had lived and the lives he had touched. The visitors were members of the boy's family and influential associates who wanted to offer more than words of gratitude. They spoke of educational opportunities, financial assistance for the janitor and his sister, and ways to expand his influence to help more students. They emphasized that their support was meant to honor the janitor's character, bravery, and unwavering commitment to helping others. The janitor listened, humbled and grateful, understanding the importance of their offer for his family's future and the potential to further impact the lives of students. In the days that followed, the janitor's life began to change subtly but significantly. He continued to work at the school, but he also started participating in programs designed to mentor students, support their learning, and promote emotional growth. The boy remained by his side, assisting in organizing activities, tutoring sessions, and workshops. Together, they created an environment where students felt safe, supported, and encouraged to pursue their dreams. The janitor realized that his acts of courage and kindness had sparked a ripple effect that extended far beyond his initial actions. The school community continued to evolve as a result of the janitor's influence. Students became more considerate of one another, offering support to classmates who struggled. Teachers noticed increased engagement and cooperation among students. The culture of empathy, respect, and encouragement grew stronger with each passing day. The janitor's consistent presence and guidance had become a cornerstone of this positive transformation. At home, the janitor's relationship with his sister improved as well. They shared meals, stories, and small moments of joy. The financial support offered by the boy's family allowed them to secure a safer and more comfortable living environment. Yet despite these changes, the janitor remained grounded, focusing on the happiness and well-being of those around him, rather than material gain. One afternoon, the janitor and the boy organized a school-wide event to celebrate acts of kindness. Students shared stories of how they had helped one another. Teachers recognized the efforts of students and staff, and the janitor was quietly acknowledged for the impact he had made. The event became a symbol of the school's transformation and a testament to the power of empathy, courage, and consistent care. The janitor felt a profound sense of fulfillment, knowing that his actions had inspired a culture of kindness and respect. As the academic year progressed, the janitor continued to serve as a mentor and role model. He worked closely with the boy and other students, offering guidance, encouragement, and support. The boy's confidence and leadership skills grew, and he became a source of inspiration for his peers. Teachers and staff recognized the positive influence of the janitor, and the school administration supported his involvement in programs that promoted student growth and development. Outside the school, the janitor's story began to gain broader attention. Local media and community organizations highlighted his courage, humility, and dedication. People admired how someone with so little could impact the lives of many through simple, consistent acts of kindness. The janitor remained modest, never seeking fame, but he recognized the opportunity to use this attention to further inspire positive change in the community. Over time, the janitor expanded his efforts beyond the school. He collaborated with local organizations to provide mentorship, tutoring, and support for underprivileged students. His initiatives emphasize the importance of empathy, resilience, and the courage to help others. The boy, now a confident and capable young leader, continued to work alongside him, extending the janitor's influence and ensuring that more students had access to guidance and support. As months passed, the janitor's life continued to evolve, but his core values remained unchanged. He found joy in the small moments, seeing a student succeed, witnessing acts of kindness, or simply offering a listening ear. He understood that true heroism was not measured by wealth or recognition, but by the positive impact one could have on others through selfless actions. The boy, inspired by the janitor's example, took on increasing responsibilities, mentoring younger students and fostering a culture of empathy and support. Together, they had created an environment where courage and kindness were celebrated, and where students felt empowered to help one another. The janitor felt a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing that his actions had set off a chain of events that would continue to positively influence the school community for years to come. One evening, as the janitor returned home with his sister, he reflected on the journey that had brought him to this point. From humble beginnings through acts of courage and kindness, he had not only transformed the life of a single student, but had also helped reshape the culture of an entire school. His life had changed in ways he never imagined, yet he remained grounded in humility, compassion, and dedication. The janitor understood that his story was a testament to the power of selfless action. One simple act of courage during an exam had rippled outward, touching lives, inspiring others, and creating opportunities that would have seemed impossible just months earlier. His commitment to helping others had never wavered, and it continued to shape his life and the lives of those around him in profound ways. As the school year came to a close, the janitor looked around at the students, teachers, and staff who had been part of this journey. He saw the boy, confident and strong, surrounded by peers who had learned the value of empathy, courage, and kindness. He realized that true impact is not measured by recognition or material rewards, but by the enduring influence one has on the lives of others. The janitor continued his work, remaining a humble, steady presence in the school. His story, once quiet and unnoticed, had become a source of inspiration for many. It reminded everyone that courage, kindness, and selflessness could create ripples of positive change, touching lives in ways that were both immediate and lasting. And though his life had changed in remarkable ways, he remained true to himself, guided by the values that had always defined him: humility, compassion, and the unwavering desire to make a difference, one small act at a time.